services at all whatsoever. But also, we're going to talk about some of the impact on just spirituality in general and the conception of spirituality, and um, just sort of some of the general ridiculousness that I've seen that's made my hair stand on end in the last couple of weeks. I don't even remember what the original impetus was that really like spawned this. Um, and it's not like it's any one thing necessarily, but I guess I saw an ad, some girls on Facebook that were selling a manifestation course or something, and their demeanor and their body language and their script and everything about them was so phony and ingratiating in all the worst ways, and just really horrific. And I it just blew my mind. Not only that people would buy into their obvious nonsense, but that they wouldn't also be able to see into the fact that yes, this manifestation works. This woman learned social media marketing. She learned her demographic. She learned all of the lingo that people are expecting to hear from people like her, and she made herself very marketable. She was attractive. Um, so there you go. That's how her manifestation actually worked, you know? And so I'm not just like trolling people here. This is actually important because I obviously am a person that makes my income. I don't like to frame it this way because I don't see it this way, but turning spirituality into a commodity to an extent. Um, Certainly providing information. I get paid to provide information. I do something like life coaching. I hate to use that word. I do plant medicine ceremonies. Um, all sorts of things that I guess would fall under that category of spirituality industry. Um, and it I've thought about this a lot, like whether that is fundamentally wrong, and it definitely isn't. In fact, one of the most common criticisms that people have of shamans that charge for ceremonies is that these kind of services should be provided absolutely for free. Um, I hate to tell these people, but the shaman in the village was pretty much the only capitalist in a lot of the villages. He had big piles of chicken and jewelry and armadillo shells and whatever it was that was considered currency or a value. And you always, even in your own village, you still would bring the shaman something. There is no kind of sensible way of living where there is no compensation in a transaction of any kind. This is not a human conceptualization anyways. This is what the universe does. It's an automatic it's a functional aspect of the exchange of energy of any kind. It's just how it works. And successful systems become successful by imitating nature. Really what Freemasons did, and other architects of power that used, I don't want to say magic, but really an understanding of natural law and its tenets in order to inculcate their systems with power and success. The pyramid is the symbol of the Masons and other secret societies that have, engineered societies, because it's the most stable geometric shape. And, it's that kind of thinking on a deeper level, there's deeper and deeper. You can keep going down the rabbit hole of how to actually apply knowledge of, the universe to your systems to make them a microcosm of the macrocosm. And that's, you know, that's how successful systems is why they're successful. Be like a water, you know. Um, it's sort of cliche, but it's definitely the reality. And so there's definitely nothing wrong with um, the receiving something in exchange for something. The problem is that when you bring the um, profit motive into the arena, the gladiators start fighting, and that's not really what I meant to say. But the problem is that these spiritual systems become polluted and distorted and cheapened and destroyed and damaged, not because people are charging to guide other people or to teach them, but because these systems are being changed in order to make them more marketable. And that is where we have a problem. And this problem is not just, you know, like it's obnoxious to see this or something. It's actually much more profoundly impactful. And in my opinion, it's actually slowing down the development of our entire culture in that arena. Because, when you have an idea like manifestation, there are two things that you can sell in spirituality that are, the main driving, well, three, really. There's always three, right? Wink your third eye thrice, if you know what I mean. Um, um, One of those things is spiritual bypassing, right? This is what Christianity is basically all about. You can do whatever awful stuff you want, and then someone else, you just put it on them, and they take care of it for you, and you don't have to do any actual work. And um, there you have, Western society, basically. That's like one of the worst ones that comes to mind right away. Spiritual bypassing, though, is, highly marketable because people don't want to have to do anything. Energy healers also can fall into this category. You don't have to do your shadow work. Thank you so much. You don't have to, re-experience your traumas. You don't have to go out into the jungle and, vomit all night with plant medicine or whatever. You can just have someone wiggle their fingers around, and then you're going to be better. It's completely stupid, and it's not real. And, it's just super harmful to pretend to help people, and then they think they've been helped, and then they go back into their town and back into their family, and they're just as fucked up as they were before, maybe even more so. And they believe that they're better, so the work stops. They become more obnoxious. Their ego expands because they think they've been healed, and they start driving away friends and family members and stuff. I mean, we've all seen this kind of crap. Um, how's it going? Um, so there's one. The spiritual bypassing thing is not not good. Oh, another one that falls into that category is when people, oftentimes, this is a legitimately conscious scam that a lot of psychics use on people. And the first thing that they do is convince you that they ask you a few questions, right? Like, what are you into? I'll give you an example from my friend. This was done to my friend. He still doesn't believe it, but I'm sure of it. A little bit of information about yourself. Okay, well, I'm into plant medicine and shamanism and magic, and I'm trying to discover my connections to my shamanic roots in my European ancestors. And so the psychic says, oh, you were a great shaman in your past life, and then now she has said something to you that you're invested in believing. You want to believe this. So when she says to you now, oh, and you also have a spiritual attachment. You have this parasitical entity, this woman that is draining your vril or whatever, and I can remove it for, $3,000 or whatever, and you're going to feel so much better. But now you want to believe her because you're invested in this first story that she's gotten you attached to. So, this is the real damage that this stuff is doing. It's much worse than just scamming people out of money, because in my personal experience, my God, look at that. Oh, it flew away. By the way, you guys, I'm much deeper in the Amazon, and I don't know if some of you guys have seen the short I posted where there's no bugs around the lights. Luckily, it turns out deeper in the jungle, there are still bugs. There's plenty of bugs deeper. I think it's easy to, that thing bites too. I'm really unhappy about having that around. But Yeah, so I mean, it's dying from the edges in, you know, because we were kind of more on the border of the Amazon before antenna, and so I was glad to see though that there's still a lot of insects around the lights. Where are we at though? Because this was about to get really okay. So here's the thing, I think it's quite possible that, you know, because for example, physicists tell us that there's no information lost at the subatomic level. On the other side of the veil, on a thermodynamic or macro scale, information is lost, right? So we die on the thermodynamic level, that person vanishes, but on a subatomic or energetic level, that individual retains their essence. And you know what I mean? Um, so, you know, through coming to these kind of understandings that scientific illuminism is a great tool for, by the way, um, you know, you can, at least I've had experiences that were very convincing, um, uncover past lives. And you do that through a very long and focused and persistent, consistent uh, practice. And, you know, along the way, you learn all kinds of other things. Um, all sorts of pieces of the cosmic puzzle are revealed to you, and you grow tremendously. So if you go to some psychic and they just tell you, it would, even if it's true, they're ruining it for you. Like, it's not ethical no matter what. In fact, in the secret society that I belonged to, young when I was younger, both of them, that would be considered unethical enough to get you ejected. Um, the Scottish Rite Freemasonry for sure, and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. If people found out that you were doing something like that, you would get booted from the society for not having any ethics and journey. No one can do that for you. It's you have to do for yourself, and the skill set that you acquire and the things that you learn along the way, you don't want to take that away from anybody unless you have absolutely no values and you are just trying to take people's money. So that's another example of spiritual bypassing type stuff that's become extremely popular. um, and then, of course, you know, the other aspects of this are giving people answers, and making them comfortable and making them feel safe. You know, this is why the paternal fairy tale God kind of religion obviously has been so popular. You know, you have this personal connection with this being that can control everything. And even though you can look around the world and see that, you know, this person, you know, 4-year-olds praying with all these people around them, praying that the tumor goes away, and 90% of the time it doesn't. And you ignore that completely, and the one time it does, you just disregard the fact that sometimes there's even spontaneous remission, and you know, praise God, He obviously is real, and see, you know what I mean, like that kind of mentality. Um, it's all fear based. You know, we want to believe that we're protected, that we can trust the universe. I recently went through something that really, really, really shook up my faith in the fundamental safety of this like bubble that I've always believed that I existed in. Um, yeah, well, he's asking, does past lives basically infer that reincarnation is real? The thing about that is that you you can never really come to an absolute determination about that unless you are willing to act on faith. And in my world, there's no faith. You don't do that. That just is basically agreeing to be a moron. Like, I will stop thinking in order to be comfortable. And I think that's dangerous, and there's just so many reasons not to do that. Are you after truth, or are you just looking for a comforting delusion so you can sleep a little better at night? You know, for me, I'm actually after truth. So the thing is, I've had experiences where I was able to dredge up information that was incredibly accurate. I knew this person's entire, you know, catalog of books almost word for word. I did all the same stuff when I was a kid. I had the same habits, down to smoking the same type of tobacco, the same type of smoking jacket, the eggs cooked the same way, coffee this, like, just insane. And my fundamental essence as a person was exactly the same, maybe a lot less dark, but exactly the same. But at any rate, you know, I had a whole lot of characteristics that were in common with this person, but I'm also English and that person's English. And geneticists have proven that we can actually access memory through our genes. So it doesn't mean that it's, even if, that evidence is taken at face value, it doesn't mean anything. There could also be a storehouse of information. Physicists tell us that no information is lost at the subatomic level. So just because someone can remember past life stuff doesn't mean reincarnation is real. It just means that information is accessible through non-ordinary means, or that there's some sort of holographic mind that permeates the universe. And, this kind of thinking, I think, drives people insane, and they don't want to do it. They want someone to do it for them and then give them the script and say, here is what is actually correct. And it's not possible. For me, spirituality is learning to think like this. So that, anytime you come to a conclusion, you know that it's false, and that what you actually need to do is divide it into two probably antinomies. That, it's like the forked tongue of the serpent. All of these questions end with like two distinct possibilities. So, the thing about that is that I'm fairly well convinced that consciousness arises from light, because there's no other possible culprit. There are only two things in the universe. Only two things in the universe: light and void. And matter's light in a standing wave. It's light and nothing. Right? So there's really no other possibility. Our consciousness arises from light. And if you look through all the religions and all the teachings of all of the whoever's, the Buddhas, and, it's the Nirvana is this bright white light, and God is light that is changeless and eternal. And for the photon, there is no time. There's no time at the speed of light. Formless. There's no mass. Light has no mass. Changeless. So just doing the logical reasoning through this, if consciousness arises from light and photons are eternal, that's what physicists say, they're at least a billion-year lifespan and possibly eternal, then some aspect of our consciousness is eternal. Which means that, it changes form, and it is just on this eternal journey where it's sort of formulated into different entities that have experiences. But is that what you mean by, reincarnation? Because I think of reincarnation generally as the idea of like the monad. There's Leibniz's monad, something that I just intuitively knew before I read that Leibniz. That was kind of an interesting experience. Someone asked me what a monad was, and I explained it, and it was only like 2 months ago or something that I actually found out that a monad was something Leibniz had described exactly the way that, and that kind of stuff is evidence to me that of this, at least of our ability to access information through sort of non-ordinary channels. While we're on the subject, I guess the thing that you really have to watch out for, that a lot of people are really bad about, is, believing channeling when there's no way to verify anything. That's not, it's not that, you got to be careful about it. That idea is that there's like fundamental essence, a unit of consciousness, and we all are a monad fundamentally, and then there's like greater monads that are sort of composed of, structures of smaller monads, and that's where beings like the Demiurgos or Lucifer, or these like archetypes in consciousness, that's kind of what they are, I guess, is like monadic superstructures. And really also the eye in the sky implies that, because, you have the triangle with the eye in the middle, and then if you think about the structure of the pyramids, there's all these little blocks. So, by the way, you guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. While we have kind of a few people in here, I want to mention that the idea of having an event in Cuzco has come about because we basically have decided that our son is at an age where he needs to have community and we need more stability. And we have been looking everywhere, trying to figure out how we can get Enrica out of the jungle. And not really, I mean, she loves the jungle, but the weather, so in the mountains, but still accessible to the jungle. And then I discovered that Cusco has access to 3 different areas of the Amazon within an hour and a half to 3 hours. So like sold, the internet we're having trouble finding good internet here. So we're going to Cusco. I'm definitely in fundraiser mode. You guys, I have t-shirts for sale in my Etsy store. If you are that like multi-billionaire supporter that's been thinking, I would really love to send this guy some huge surprise donation to support his channel at some point, this is definitely the time to do it. This is definitely the scariest and most uncertain juncture in my entire life, which I never thought I would be saying time ago. Things definitely can just 180 on you so incredibly unexpectedly. Don't blink, you guys. But yeah, I had to do that little plug there, and so it's going to be mostly focused on scientific illuminism. It's looking like a couple of guys from previous retreats are interested, and they will be assets to have there in terms of the kind of conversations that are possible. Hopefully Jay, who I just had a conversation with about scientific illuminism and Descartes and Nietzsche and those sort of folks. But every time we talk, it is just really an exceptional an exceptional conversation, and I recorded it. I'm going to edit it, and we will definitely have that up in the next week. But it sounds like he's considering coming, and a couple of other of our past people, and so it'll probably be focused on Andean medicine, and we'll at the end take a little trip down into the jungle, or maybe 2 trips, so we can see like there's very different areas of the Amazon. But anyways, that's our goal now. That's our intention. So, yeah. Every now and then, and I'm hoping this guy's still watching, because I wasn't going to say anything about this, but I kind of feel like I have to, because I'm getting trolled by people. And, I'm not. I'm just going to let them go ahead and troll. There's certain information, I guess, that I have withheld out of respect for Devin, that if I were to put it out there, it would really cast the entire situation in a completely different light. So I guess I would just suggest to people that when there's something really sensitive and you don't have all the information, you probably should just, not make an ass out of yourself. So, and also I'm having no tolerance for it. Every single time I see any kind of troll kind of comment, they're definitely getting hidden from the channel forever. No tolerance at all whatsoever for trolling. So, I guess we were on the subject of reincarnation and the possibility of the monad actually being a true entity, or if it's just some conceptualization of an unhinged mathematical genius. We just can't have answers to that question, except that I think the technique of using metaphor to translate things that we know for certain about the way that nature works into metaphysical concepts and spiritual ideas, that may actually get us somewhere. And in this case, there was a writing in one of Aleister Crowley's books many many moons ago. I read this, so I don't know if I'll remember exactly how he was saying it, but if you start out with a carbon molecule and it travels through, you know, all of these different transmigrations of its soul. So at one point it's a seashell, it's part of a seashell, and then it's sand, and then it ends up, you know, getting compressed into coal and becomes a diamond. And then at the end of time, the sun swells up, and there is great heat that separates those molecules back into their original, uh, separate. That same carbon molecule that had been all of those things would reemerge unchanged, basically. And so I guess ever since I thought about that, I have leaned towards the possibility that there's some sort of spiritual equivalent. And that would be the monad that travels through all of these different incarnations unchanged, regardless of the fact that, um, it had superficially transformed so many times. Um, but I've got a bit of a sore throat, and I'm noticing that this is becoming a struggle for me. So I think we have, good enough internet to continue doing these streams, probably, hopefully, every day. I wish I could use my camera and hook up the computer, but I don't think that's going to be possible with the bandwidth that we have to use the good camera and whatnot, which makes me sad. But thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Please like, share, support. Nice. Yeah, I do have a Discord. It should be in the description. I'm not sure if I updated my, I don't know what that's called, but it puts all the information automatically. Hopefully I did that, added the Discord. Join the Discord so you can network with all of us. We're trying to make good things happen in the world. And we are actually starting to develop a sort of core group of people that are sharing their minds and talents in order to try to make something functional out of our group and the knowledge and the determination that we have. And actually, before I close this up, I'm gonna bring it full circle because that's important. This started out talking about how, people criticize people for, doing shamanic work and charging for it, or, whatever. And then on the flip side of that, we have people that conceptualize things that they believe are marketable, and then they completely misrepresent real and true, ideas and techniques. Um, yeah, it just and ruining them by making them more marketable, basically. Um, and so, I guess for me, the way that I operate, and Enrica as well, we don't have some preconceived dogma that we're trying to adhere to. There's no religion driving our behavior. There's just a relationship to ourselves and a certain alignment with values that we feel are obvious, that are natural, that there's this belief, or I don't want to call it a belief, but okay, belief in Freemasonry, that there is an objective morality, right? That nature's laws actually dictate what is appropriate conduct to us. And, to take that a step further, our nature's laws dictate to us what our conduct should be, you know? So I have a hard time amassing, capital, because I can't walk by a refugee that has children. I live in South America, so we'll pass refugees all the time. And for the better part of the last 5 years, haven't had any money, barely enough to get by. But my logic is that I don't really understand how I should be entitled to, um, excess when this Argentinian person or Venezuelan person had just had their native country's government destabilized so that the U.S. can maintain an artificially uh, inflated economy. And then, most of the citizens, even the ones that say that they don't, are standing on the backs of these people they look down on, and then, coming down here to visit and walking by the refugees who are there so that they could afford their vacation. You know what I mean? It's really just, I don't understand how people do it, you know? Um, it's just a really crazy thing to me, you know? And so I guess what I'm getting at with all that is that we engineer everything we do to support the people around us to the greatest possible extent. Um, this guy that was saying, why don't you donate to Devin? If you guys don't know who that is, you can find the story on my page. But I feel like I should send him my bank statement right now. I have $36. Like, what am I gonna do with that? You know, that's the kind of like, and the only reason I'm even mentioning that is that I can't imagine that there are actually people that would have money that they could contribute to something they're personally connected to that matters, that would actually just sit on it because there's just that big of a piece of shit, you know. Um, it just I don't understand, and I feel bad for whoever that guy is, that he lives in a world where that's how he expects people to be, you know. Um, it's normal, you know. I saw this paper that was written in the 70s called "Are Normal People Evil?" And the conclusion, and the very convincing conclusion, was that yes, normal people are actually evil. That the standards of conduct that we have come to accept are actually evil, and that's why the world is the way that it is, you know. So I guess that's kind of my, ultimate answer to the question that I posed in the title of this video. You know, it's it's not about whether or not you are charging for services at all, you know, but why you're doing what you're doing. Pure will without lust of result is in every way perfect. Masters are made by the doing of the thing for the doing of the thing, not for monetary goals, you know. But then if you find yourself a master of something, uh, you should happily make money from it if you can, you know. And from my point of view, if you have a natural talent, or, you know, yeah, a natural talent, or some, I don't want to say God given gift or whatever, it's not really yours. So, for me, I just can't help but believe that if everyone actually operated like, if they don't absolutely need what they have, then they should help the people around them. And if everyone did that, I'm pretty sure there would be equalization. Um, and I know it's kind of idealistic and um, maybe lofty, but I don't think it's untrue. I'm pretty sure people have actually done the mathematics and determined that it actually is true, that that's how um, it would play out. And so I guess, what I'm trying to say is that I feel like if you're coming from a place of authenticity and you're acting for the right reasons, everything else will fall into place ethically around that, you know? So, um, just like everything else, I guess there's just no black and white answer. Uh, but it does bring us to the whole fundamental point of my YouTube channel and my message. And yeah, I did, John. Thanks for asking. And I'm also going to going to drink alone the day after tomorrow and see what else I can ascertain about this. You know, I feel like I totally understand what happened, and I am actually doing something to try to ensure that it doesn't happen anymore. I don't want to get too deeply into it, but I feel like this situation has shown me an oversight in the entire plant medicine industry. And it looks like there is a simple test that can be done to ensure safety. And I think what's happening is that because it's a relatively small number of people, like 16 million out of the population of the US, that have this gene, um, and it happens so rarely that people just didn't, you know, the general wisdom is that it was just something that happens sometimes. It usually doesn't happen, but it's just a roll of the dice. And I think I've figured out that there actually is a simple test that can be done to um, eliminate further incidents like this. So, you know, once I have all of the ducks in a row and I can explain it more fully and freely, I will. But yeah, that's that's where that's at. Yeah, getting a little bit tired of the attacks, and especially because I promised someone to keep my mouth shut about something that, like I said before, completely changes everything if it's true. So, you know, that's a tough one. Um, but time heals all wounds, I guess, and it's just a matter of time. And so, did I wrap up my thing though? Did I get knocked off course before I finished it? Oh yeah, the true will thing. You know, the whole point of my existence really is it really comes from the fact that I've always had it. I've always been um, connected to my fundamental sense of purpose. It was the same when I was 5 years old as it is today. And a lot of my ideas about how I view the universe really came to me as a small child, which is, I didn't realize it back then, but it, you know, pretty unusual. Like I'm a really little kid crawling around in the front yard, and I would see a grasshopper or something, and its voice in my head would say something like, you know, you're gonna see or live an entire lifetime from the point of view of every ant, every cricket, every grasshopper, every plant, every person, every star, everything in the entire universe before it's all said and done. And, you know, I'm like 6 or something. And, you know, so I was acutely aware, very, very young, that the problem with people was a crisis of purpose. You know, I didn't have that language at 6, but I definitely knew that the religion was a big part of it, but they only had the religion because of the crisis of purpose, right? So my whole entire journey, I guess, accumulating clarity and coming to a greater understanding of what this is all about, it just, you know, it just brought it into sharper and sharper focus that the solution on the micro level and on the macro level, on every scale, the sociological and the, you know, even the environmental, because all of this stuff is connected, um, is to resolve that crisis of purpose. That's what has to happen. And it seems to me that when you do that and you constrain yourself to that purpose, you're generally much more in homeostasis with the rest of the universe. Not just your friends and family, but generally, you find yourself just sort of in harmony with reality. And of course, it's not a guarantee. There are always fluctuations and perturbations, and there is chaos. Chaos is real. Doesn't matter how much harmony you create. This is another spiritual concept of the like pop culture paradigm that I find absolutely horrific. People that, if you get sick, basically you did it to yourself because you're attracting things to you that, like, I don't know if people say that if they forget that there are like 18 months old kids with cancer and what, you know what I mean? Like, what are they talking about, or that you choose everything that happens to you before you come into this life and all of this stuff. I mean, come on, you guys, those are blankets. That's just stuff people tell themselves to comfort themselves. It's not real. It's not real. There's truth to it. It does, increase your chances of, having safety and harmony and all of these things if you're, following your true will and whatnot. But it doesn't create immunity. Chaos is, the universe is half and half of order and chaos, light and dark, all of these opposites. And yeah, at any rate, it's definitely still advisable to figure out your true will and to follow it, because otherwise you are lost and you're not going to be happy. There is not a single person that I've ever encountered in my entire life that is out of sync with their nature that is content. Um, really, know thyself is the almost universal maxim of all of the great philosophers and thinkers. They just said it differently, but that's the secret core of it, that you have to discover why you're here and pursue that without reservation. And that's the philosopher's stone. That's the summum bonum. That's as good as it's going to get. So thank you guys so much for spending this time with me, and I will see you again soon. Hit the like button, share, subscribe. Email me about Cuzco if you're interested in that. And best of luck.